Good afternoon. It's Sunday, the 27th of September. I'm Erin Viner, and this is IBA News broadcasting from Jerusalem. We open on the Temple Mount, where there were again clashes this afternoon on the final day of the Muslim Eid al-Adha holiday and just hours before the start of the Jewish festival of Sukkot. Masked Palestinians hurled rocks and shot fireworks at security forces in Jerusalem's Old City and once again barricaded themselves within the Al-Aqsa Mosque. Police and Border Patrol troops carried out riot control measures in attempts to quell the violence. The holy site has been a flashpoint of conflict in recent weeks, and as a failed effort to facilitate goodwill, the authorities announced that today no age restrictions would be placed on Palestinian worshippers in honor of the Islamic holiday. The complex was also closed to Jewish visitors, and authorities say that today's tensions were likely fueled by reports that several right-wing Jewish groups were planning to lead a mass prayer near the entrance to the mount before trying to enter. Peace was ultimately restored, and no injuries or arrests were reported. 4 Palestinian teenagers, including 2 minors, have been arrested for involvement in the rock-throwing attack on a car in Jerusalem on the eve of the Rosh Hashanah holiday 2 weeks ago that led to the death of its driver, Alexander Levlovitz. The Shin Bet Security Service released the information last night, identifying all 4 as Israeli citizens residing in the capital's Subaher neighborhood, including 18-year-olds Mohammed Salah Abu Kaf and Walid Faraz Mustafa Atrash, as well as 17-year-old Mahmoud Abed Rabo Dwayat. The other minors' details remain under a gag order imposed by the court. All of the suspects have reportedly confessed to carrying out the deadly attack, with Dwayat admitting to having thrown rocks at several cars in the name of Hamas before he successfully hit the victim's car. The 64-year-old Levlovitz was critically injured after losing control of his vehicle, crashing into an electrical pole, and then dying of his wounds the following morning. 2 female passengers in the car with him at the time also sustained light wounds. The incident occurred during the wave of rock and firebomb attacks across the capital and the West Bank that prompted Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu to convene an emergency meeting at the end of the Jewish New Year to implement a series of new tough measures against perpetrators. The Prime Minister today cleared for publication the name of his choice to lead the nation's police forces, which is Roni Al-Sheikh. Even though Public Security Minister Gilad Erdan announced the selection for the next commissioner last Friday, it's been forbidden to identify him by name until now because of his current position as Deputy Chief of the Shin Bet Security Service. Al-Sheikh is a resident of the city of Givat Shmuel in the center of the country. He is considered to belong to the national religious sector and is the father of 7 children and grandfather of 7 as well. The 52-year-old has been deeply involved in the war on terror and considered by many to be the mastermind of the Shin Bet. He holds a master's degree in criminology from Hebrew University in Jerusalem and a bachelor's degree in political science from the Haifa and Tel Aviv universities. Following a 28-day strike, the dispute over the funding of the nation's Christian schools has been resolved. 33,000 students will finally start class at the community's 47 educational facilities tomorrow, now that their leaders signed an agreement with the Treasury. According to the deal, nearly 58 million shekels have been allocated to the Christian schools, which remain closed since the start of the academic year on the 1st of September in protest over budget cuts. Further details included in the deal will officially be presented later this evening at a press conference in Nazareth. Beloved journalist and filmmaker Moti Kirschenbaum was laid to rest at the Michmoret Cemetery this morning. President Reuven Rivlin was among hundreds of family members, friends, colleagues, and leading media personalities who gathered for a memorial service ahead of the funeral in a tribute to the iconic journalist who passed away Friday at the age of 76. Eulogies were offered by Kirschenbaum's close friends, President Rivlin, and renowned writer and poet Yonatan Geffen, along with veteran journalist and his co-host for the past 14 years on their daily Channel 10 current events program, Yaron London. 2 of Kirschenbaum's granddaughters and his eldest son, Kanan, broke out in tears when they spoke about his legacy and the huge void that has been left in their lives. Other mourners spoke of the Kirschenbaum's many achievements and his career, which ended suddenly when he suffered a heart attack just before broadcasting his weekly sports program on Army radio. Per his family's request, only close relatives accompanied him to his final resting place. Kirschenbaum served as the head of the Israel Broadcast Authority between 1993 and 1997. He leaves behind his partner, 4 children, and grandchildren. His death came as a shock to many of us here at IBA, who knew him personally and are deeply saddened by his loss. May his memory be blessed. The IDF has announced that the commander of the troops seen assaulting 2 reporters from the AFP news agency in the West Bank on Friday has been removed from his post after a preliminary review of the incident revealed that he failed to conduct himself in accordance with professional expectations. According to the statement, the defense establishment considers the actions to be grave and in contravention of the Army's Code of Ethics. The soldiers were filmed near Nablus, seizing and destroying equipment belonging to the 2 journalists, who were both wearing body armor clearly marked press. According to the agency, one suffered bruised ribs and a facial injury after being held down on the ground by a soldier with a knee on his chest until he was able to produce his press card. A rocket launched from Syria fell in open territory in the northern Golan Heights last night, causing no injuries or damage. After a check of the landing site, an IDF assessment concluded that the attack was likely a result of errant fire from the ongoing civil war in Syria. There have been innumerable such incidents since the outbreak of the conflict in 2011. Turning abroad, and U.S. Secretary of State John Kerry and Iranian Foreign Minister Mohammad Javad Zarif held their first face-to-face meeting since they signed the landmark nuclear agreement in Vienna last July. The two spoke yesterday along the sidelines of the United Nations General Assembly in New York. According to Kerry, he will hold further discussions with his Iranian counterpart in the week ahead that could open a dialogue with Tehran about efforts to resolve the conflict in Syria as well as the one that is raging in Yemen.
I view this week as a major opportunity for any number of countries to play an important role in trying to resolve some of the very difficult issues of the Middle East. We need to achieve peace and a way forward in Syria, in Yemen, in the region itself, and I think there are opportunities this week through these discussions to make some progress.
We are going to concentrate in this meeting on the full implementation of the Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action. That is the project that we started together, and we hope that by its full implementation, its good faith implementation, we can dent some of the mistrust that has existed over the past many decades.
Regarding the refugee crisis sparked by the Syrian civil war, the United Nations High Commissioner for Refugees, Antonio Guterres, says that he believes the world waited far too long to respond to the matter.
Only when the poor enter the house of the rich do the rich notice that the poor exist. And indeed, until we had this massive movement into Europe, there was no recognition in the developed world of how serious the refugee crisis was. If in the past we had more massive support to the refugees and more massive support to those host countries in the developing world that have been receiving them and protecting them, these would not have happened. And of course, more important than anything else, if the international community would be able to come together and put an end to the conflict, then there wouldn't even be a refugee crisis.
Last week's deadly disaster during the Hajj in Saudi Arabia has led to an escalation of tensions with its regional arch-rival Iran. Tehran is now vowing to take international legal action against Riyadh over the stampede that claimed the lives of at least 769 observant Muslims. 136 of the dead were Iranian citizens, amounting to the largest group of casualties identified so far. President of the Islamic Republic, Hassan Rouhani, opened his address to the UN General Assembly by expressing regret and calling for a swift investigation of the incident, following scathing condemnation from his nation over the past several days, holding Saudi Arabian authorities responsible for the catastrophe. Foreign Minister Adel Al-Jubeir responded to the latest comments by saying that the Iranians should know better than to play politics with a tragedy that has befallen people who were performing their most sacred religious duty. The pilgrims suffocated or were trampled to death Thursday when 2 massive crowds converged on a narrow street in the most fatal disaster to occur during Hajj in a quarter of a century. Shiite Iran is accusing the Sunni Arabian Kingdom of mismanaging the pilgrimage, which attracts around 2 million people from 180 nations every year. Amid the rising controversy, this year's Hajj came to an end yesterday. Pilgrims streamed into the Jamarat in Mina, which is a multi-story complex equipped with crowd monitoring technology and ramps wide enough to facilitate the passage of large crowds wishing to perform the final rites of the pilgrimage. In one of the last steps of the Hajj, pilgrims throw stones at 3 large pillars in the symbolic casting away of evil. Saudi security forces were on hand to ensure safety at the site, as well as to spray pilgrims with water to help keep them cool as temperatures soared to 38 degrees Celsius. Large fans were also set up to help spread mist. Could an opulent ancient burial site discovered over 150 years ago near Modi'in really have been the tomb of the Maccabees? Well, that's the historical riddle that the Israel Antiquities Authority is now trying to answer. IBA's Ari O'Sullivan brings us the inside scoop.
A lot of legends and stories have been told about Horbat HaGardi near the city of Modi'in, which has been linked to the Maccabees. 150 years after the site was first discovered, the Israel Antiquities Authority has decided to settle the enigma. Is this truly the site where Matityahu and his 5 sons are buried? Ancient historian Josephus described the tomb as impressive, surrounded by columns and built of fine stones covered with a pyramid-like roof. Archaeologists in the 19th century uncovered a mosaic floor with a cross from the Byzantine era, but early Christians revered the Maccabees, and this could have been a sign of respect.
The saying of the famous archaeologist Charles Le Morganau, who excavated in this actual place in 1871. And Charles Le Morganau tells us, listen carefully, he said, the Maccabean were a sacred people, were martyrs. The early Christianity adored the Maccabean. Imagine, without the Maccabean, the Christianity was not giving birth. We all, Jewish, Christian, together would pray to idols. Because of that, Christianity, the Maccabean are very, very important to Christianity. Probably, early Christianity seek the tomb of the Maccabean, identified them, maybe here, and decorated them with those mosaic.
The IAA has now called on the public to help them solve the puzzle and will be opening the site to volunteers during the Sukkot vacation.
We, the Israeli Antiquity Authority, seek to continue the excavation here. The site is much, much larger than we see right now. There are surprises waiting us to the archaeologists to be revealed. Maybe in the future we will find the right proof.
The Antiquities Authority hope that at the end of the excavations and digging, they'll be able to say, here is where the Maccabees are buried. And if not here, then where? Ari O'Sullivan for IBA News.
Former ambassador to the United States and Deputy Foreign Minister Danny Ayalon is working toward changing common misconceptions about Israel. He spoke with IBA's Efrat Batad about his The Truth About Israel initiative, which is now celebrating 2 years of efforts to combat delegitimization, BDS, and incitement against the Jewish state.
Truth About Israel, which I founded 2 years ago, is a non-profit organization based in Israel. And I was banking on my long experience in Israel PR and how to position Israel throughout international communities. So what we do, it's basically a social network based, where we have our website, where we have our very short news clips and informational clips which go on the web, and they go to millions around the world. And basically the principle is to be on message, and the message is very, very simple. Successive Israeli governments in the last 20 years since Oslo Agreement have forgotten what the message was. So we talked about self-defense, we talked about the conflict with the Palestinians. The basic message is today is that the land of Israel belongs to the Jews as the Jews belong to the land of Israel, and we can prove it archaeologically, historically, politically. That is not to say that we are not ready for a compromise, historic compromise with the Palestinians. So we show this short clips, information only, facts only, and we let the viewers judge. So first of all is the message, then of course is the platform through the YouTube, through Facebook, through Twitter, and we have had already millions of viewers, and it's not going to change overnight Israel's position, but we have to keep doing it slowly but consistently until we change how our international community and people, students, whatever, see Israel.
Basically a tool for Hasbara?
It's a tool for Hasbara. It's being used by Israeli consulates and embassies worldwide, organizations worldwide, Jewish and non-Jewish, evangelical as well. So we become a source of information and also of how to deliver messages. One of our projects was a Q&A, the most frequented and most difficult questions politically about settlements, about territories, about Israel's initiative or lack thereof. And in our website, you have a short answer, of course, with all the arguments to any question that anyone, whether it's a friend or detractor of Israel, has.
And you feel that it has an effect on public opinion?
Absolutely. As I say, we have been lagging 20 years behind our enemies. The Palestinians have very deliberately, very in a vast way used incitement and delegitimization campaign against Israel. So it's an uphill, but we certainly make a difference. And I believe that within few years, organizations like us, Truth About Israel, and other organizations, each one has its own niche. Our niche is basically political. We are taking, the head-on, the political questions. And I believe that the more, the better. The government, unfortunately, lacks of fund and lacks of expertise. Bureaucracy is too slow, so we are much faster responders to anything that happens. And I believe that when we have the civic organizations, when it's like a grassroots operation, it has more credibility to the viewers overseas when it's government-owned. So we are actually supplementing and assisting the government without being part of it.
Due to the upcoming Sukkot holiday, there was no trading on the Tel Aviv stock market today, but taking a look at the weather, and we can expect very nice holiday conditions tomorrow with no significant change in temperatures. Here's the forecast at home and abroad over the next 24 hours. Thank you for being with us this afternoon. We hope you'll join us again tomorrow, and I'll be back to bring you the latest breaking news from Israel. I'm Erin Viner, and everyone here at IBA News joins me in wishing you and all of our viewers a great evening, Chag Sukkot Sameach, and Shalom from Jerusalem.